have not borne us oil or fire. The color of their leaves has turned. The morning breeze awakens no longing in us. Its desires embrace strangers in our stead. My name is Noura Ariqat. These are the words, excerpted words, of one of Palestine's brightest stars, the poetess Salma Jayousi, a poet and trailblazer dedicated to disseminating Arabic literature to the world stage through translation and fortitude. Covering an itinerary common to so many Palestinians, she studied in Beirut, thrived in Baghdad, earned her PhD in London, and produced prolifically in Amman, where she passed away on April 20th earlier this year, just shy of 100 years old. Jayousi was born in the aftermath of the establishment of the Palestine Mandate, an arrangement with the newly established League of Nations to shepherd the territories of the vanquished Ottoman and German empires to independence. But the Palestine Mandate had incorporated the Balfour Declaration designating Palestine as a site of Jewish settlement into its preambular text and referred to the land's Palestinian natives, some 90% of the whole, as non-Jews rather than by their name. Palestinians have since been responding to this colonial erasure, fighting for our collective peoplehood, fighting for our right to belong on a land that, in the words of Mahmoud Darwish, there is a life worth living. Our convening here this evening is a continuation of that noble cause. Welcome, ahla wa sahla, to an opportunity to learn about 75 years of Nakba and the Palestinian people. In that spirit, we acknowledge that we too are on indigenous lands, on lands that have never been ceded. We recognize the Naqochta people who belong here and were removed by European settler colonists. That displacement is ongoing in the form of broken treaties, racialized policing, and obfuscating settler mythologies. Our struggles are entwined. Thank you to the co-hosts that have made this evening possible: AGP Action, IMU, Project 48, DAWN, the U.S. Campaign for Palestinian Rights, American Friends Service Committee, Engage Action, the Virginia Coalition for Human Rights, JVP Action. Thank you to all of you. And thank you to this wonderful audience seated and standing and with us. And if I may, if you are seated but see elders around you, please give up your seats for them so that they may sit as well. The Nakba, or the Palestinian catastrophe, refers to the cataclysmic events that ruptured Palestine's social fabric, tearing Palestinian communities apart from one another and disrupting their relationships to their land and their homes. Between December 1947, following the UN proposal for partition, and March 1949, following the close of hostilities during the 1948 Arab-Israeli War, nearly 800,000 Palestinians were removed from their homes. They were scattered over borders, across waters, into camps, into tents, in order to make room for another society to be built in their place, on top of their place, within their homes, nothing short of an apocalypse. And while May 15th may refer to the day of formalized exile from Palestine, the Nakba has never stopped. It is ongoing. Sometimes, we see it vividly, as we did earlier this week, when yet again, the 11th most powerful military in the world bombed a population held hostage in a 365 square kilometer coastal enclave with advanced weapons technology, creating yet more needless martyrs against us. Sometimes it is quiet, as when many of you who may travel as Palestinians with American passports and arrive at that border in trepidation of whether or not you will be allowed or denied entry, and thus become another refugee plus one. And still, through so much, we exist. We exist. We exist because of the heroic hunger strikes, like that of Sheikh Khadir Adnan, arrested 13 times without charge or trial, who waged 4 hunger strikes to earn his freedom and died in captivity on May 2nd, on day 87 of his 5th hunger strike. In response to his wife, Randa, who asked how he could possibly bear the pain of yet another strike upon his body, he replied, "How does a woman choose to give birth more than once, despite having felt the pain? There is beauty and love in giving life, just as we find life in resisting an occupation and knowing the taste of freedom and being able to fight for it. We fight, and thus we know the taste of freedom." In Hizma, a small East Jerusalem suburb surrounded by 5 settlements, the Wall, a bypass road, as well as their beloved spring that has been turned into a nature preserve that they now have to pay an entry fee to gain access to, the residents stand on their land and tell me, "Nihna mawjudeen." We are here. And today, gathered, we are collectively saying to the people in these buildings, "Nihna mawjudeen." It's of critical importance to say that in these buildings because these are the institutions sustaining the ongoing Nakba. It's important for us to say it in these buildings because these are the institutions that can end the ongoing Nakba. Our gathering is precedent-setting. As many of you know, we have had to change rooms because this truth remains so dangerous for its piercing moral clarity. Thank you for making it so. We are in the company of survivors of the Nakba, our first teachers, and our legacy. If you are a survivor and you have the capacity to stand, we ask you to please stand up. Never forgotten. And as with all refugees, without exception, the descendants of refugees maintain the right to return. So will the children and the grandchildren of the This program is dedicated tonight to you all especially. The program will run for approximately 90 minutes. During that time, we will hear from esteemed historians, experts, Nakba survivors, and activists. We will also be lifted by poetry and learn about Congresswoman Rashida Tlaib's historic efforts to earn congressional recognition of the Nakba. And we will close by moving next door to break bread. So with that, let us begin with our historical grounding, offered by Yusuf Munayyad, Senior Fellow at the Arab Center in Washington, D.C., and Shira Robinson, Associate Professor of History and International Affairs at George Washington University.